What is up, guys? Fahir here from AwesomeTuts.com, and in this video we are going to take a look at how can we create enemy AI movement and attack in Unreal Engine. I don't want to stall, let me just show you what I have over here. When I click the play button, you see we have a nice little enemy over there, yada yada yada, chilling. When I come close, the enemy gets enraged, roar, coming close and attacking us. And now it's gonna attack us again and again, and if we try to run, the enemy is gonna chase us, but if I exit outside of the defined area that we will define when we get into this tutorial, you will see that the enemy is going to stop the movement. And if I come close again, the enemy is gonna stop, or start, not stop, chasing me. But I'm quick, I'm like the Flash, I'm like the Superman, nobody's quicker than me, not even you, anyways. But yeah, this is the point of this tutorial. So again, come close and attack, and of course you will be able to customize everything over here and yada yada yada. Anyways, this is the tutorial. Fahir here from AwesomeTuts.com. Again, I don't want to stall. Let's get into it, and I don't know you don't... So what I want to say actually is, I know you don't like seeing my face. Anyways, I will see you guys right now, because we're going to create this. See ya. So let's get started. As you can see over here, I have the Unreal Engine project browser, and we're going to click on games over here and click on next because we want to create a game. We are going to select here a third person project and click on next. And after that, here you have blueprints, and we're not going to touch that. So everything here, it can stay as is. Over here, you're going to select where you're going to store your folder, the project folder that is, and here is the name of your project. When you select the name in the folder, click on create project, and it will create something like this right here that you see. So now, what is the next step for us to do is right click over here inside of the content. I'm going to right click and create a new folder. I'm going to call this one enemy, I don't know, model or something like that. And I'm going to double click it. So let's go here in the assets, and these assets, you can download them from Mixamo.com. But instead of you watching me going on Mixamo.com, selecting the model, and then selecting its animations, exporting it, downloading it, yada yada yada, I already have a tutorial for that. But for this specific tutorial, you can download these assets. Link will be in the description below or from my website. Anyways, you have the zombie girl and its animations over here. So for the zombie girl, I'm going to drag it over here, and this is the first one that I'm going to import. And the reason for that is because skeletal mesh, import mesh, everything over here is checked. Over here, import textures, everything is okay. So we're going to click on import, and it is going to import the zombie girl. So first things first, waiting for this bad boy hopefully to import the zombie girl anytime soon, I'm hoping. Yada yada yada, there you go, it has imported it. And of course, as you can see, it needs to compile these shaders, and of course it takes time depending on how strong your computer is and so on and so forth. But in the meantime, I'm going to go back over here in the assets, and what we are going to do is select now all of these attack, idle and running, so these three animations, and drag and drop them over here. So for the animations over here, make sure that the zombie girl skeleton is selected, so that is really important, and everything else here is okay. So simply click on import, and the same thing for the next animation, import, same thing for the next animation, import, and voila, there you go. Now if I double click over here, this is our zombie girl. Now what the hell is wrong with the zombie girl? As you can see over here, she's transparent, we cannot see it. Well, there is a fix for that. We can go back over here, and you see these materials. So we have these three: zombie girl material, material 1, you can see these over here. So I'm going to click on and open all three of these. So click on them and open all three of these. Of course, wait for these shaders to compile, but we're still going to continue to work. So when you open these materials, this is what you will see. Click on this zombie material over here. You see this zombie girl material, click on it. When you click on this, over here in the details tab, or depending on where your details tab is, maybe it's over here for you, I don't know. But anyways, in the details tab, when you click on this over here, you will see this material. And over here, you will see this blend mode. And you can click on the drop down list. Currently, the blend mode is set to translucent. We are going to set that on masked. And then simply we're going to save it. First of all, click on apply, that is. So come on, yada, yada, yada. You need to wait, of course, for that to happen. So it has applied and saved that. So if I go back over here, you already see the zombie girl, but you naughty, naughty boys are going to look at her panties. You're going to look at her panties, right? This is what you're going to do. I'm not going to allow you that. So I'm going to go back over here, select the zombie girl material from translucent to masked again. Click on save because apparently it applies this right away. So it can apply it and it can save it right away. So there you go. And last but not least, go over here, translucent, set it to mask and click on save. And there you go. Of course, wait for this to, load. And when it loads, then there you go. So going back now here in the zombie girl, voila, this is our zombie girl. So we are done with that. The next step over here is to right click and create a blueprint class that is going to inherit over here from the character. And I'm going to call this one zombie_enemy. And double click this zombie enemy. And for the mesh over here, I am going to select, of course, the zombie girl. So let's go over here for the mesh. Zombie girl, here it is. Now I am going to set it to, change its position. So the Z axis is going to be -86 to bring it a little bit down. The Z rotation is going to be 270, and basically that's all there is to it. When it comes to our capsule components, I'm going to select it, and we are going to change over here the capsule radius, let's say to 19.32, something like that. So this is enough for us. Compile and save this bad boy. Now, also, before I proceed to do anything, what we need to do is over here for the character movement, we are going to change the maximum walk speed. You see here we have the 600, which is the maximum. We are going to set that at 375. Now, the reason for that is because for the animations that we will create, which we will soon see, so don't worry about that. But set the character movement speed to 375. This is the maximum speed, by the way. Also, what I'm going to do is select the capsule component, and we are going to filter for sphere collision, and there you go. So we have a sphere, and we're going to resize the sphere. So set the sphere radius to 800, something like this, because this is going to be the area in which our enemy or the zombie is going to detect where our player is, and then it's going to start to search for him or attack him and chase him and whatnot. And we can close this as well. So this is when it comes to our zombie blueprint. The next step, what we are going to do is go over here and in animation, and we want to create an animation blueprint, and we want to select the zombie girl skeleton because we need it so that the animations can map on it and so on and so forth. We can click on OK over here, and I can call this one enemy_animation or zombie animation, however you want to call it. That depends on you. It doesn't matter. But yeah, basically you can call it like that. So when you open the enemy animation, this is what we have, and this is where we are going to create the animation. Now, before we create the animation, we need to create the blend space for the animation, and we are also going to create the montage for the attack. So let's go back over here, and I'm going to right click and again go into animation, and we want this blend space 1D because we only want to blend two animations together. So when you click on that, we're again going to select the zombie girl skeleton as you saw me selecting it. And I'm going to call this one enemy_idle_run because this is the idle run animation. And what's gonna happen over here is that you see we have the horizontal axis over here. So the horizontal axis is going to be basically, this is going to be the parameter that we're going to use to switch between animations. And over here I'm going to name it to speed. And for the maximum value I'm going to say 375. And save that. That is the reason. You see this 375 for the maximum axis value for this parameter is because over here I set also the speed to be 375. If I go back over here, so we have the idle animation. Actually, we have the running. I'm going to put it over here. And we have the idle animation that I'm going to put over here. So notice what's going to happen. I've put the idle animation over here. And the running animation is right here. Basically, this one blend or blend one is going to blend the idle and the walk animation. So these two animations are going to blend together depending on the value of this over here, which is basically this value. So it goes from 0 to 375. When it's 0, you see, when it's 0, we are in idle. Look at the zombie. When it's 0, we are in idle. When I move it, you see, the faster or the more I move it to 375, it is now running. If I move it in between, you see it's between idle and running. So this can be like crawling or coming close to the player and something like that. So these are the options that you have. But when it's, you see 0, it's static. When it's 375, which is the maximum value we put over here, there you go. You see what is happening. So this is when it comes to the idle run animation. Now next we are also going to use the attack animation for the enemy. So let's go back over here. I'm going to right click, animation over here, and animation montage. So when you click on the animation montage, select the zombie girl skeleton, and we are going to call this one enemy attack. And the montage is basically playing just one animation. So if I double click it over here, you see we have the default, but basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the attack animation over here. See, simply by dragging and dropping, selecting the attack over here and dragging and dropping it here. If I preview it now, so let me just play it, you see how the zombie is attacking. Now the animation is a little bit slow because that's how I exported it out of Mixamo. You can export it faster, but it's not important for this example. The speed of the animation is not important. What's important is that we learn how to create enemy AI. And I can pause it over here, but you see how that works. So this is one animation that we have. And now that we don't need this window anymore. We can save it and we can close it. And inside of the enemy animation is where we are going to create our animations. So the first thing that we are going to do over here is we are going to right click and we're going to filter for state machine, and we're going to add a new state machine and select it or click on it and rename it, and it's going to be walk run, or actually idle walk. So idle run actually. And double click it. So this is our state machine, and inside of this state machine is where we are going to create our animation. So first things first, right click and create a state, and this is going to be our idle backslash or slash whatever run. And what's gonna happen over here is that this entry is gonna go directly, and I click on it. So basically I click on it and I drag it over here and I point to it, which means that this entry is going to go to this animation, and this animation is going to be played. So the next step that we're going to go is double click this idle run and open it here, and this is going to be our output animation post, or basically the animation that's going to be previewed. And the animation that we want is the enemy idle run. So drag it over here and plug it in. And we have this speed parameter that you basically see. What the hell is this speed parameter? Teacher, I'm so confused. Don't cry, man. Do not cry. So what is this speed parameter? If you remember a moment ago where we created the enemy idle run, over here, this is the name of the horizontal axis, as you can see, is the speed. So this is that speed. When the speed value is 0, we are at idle. As you can see, we are currently at idle. And if I move it over here, see, we're at idle. If the speed maximum value is 375, if I move it over here, you see, bam, we are at the movement. Why is this important? Well, because now what I'm going to do is that we are going to get a reference to our enemy. And who is the enemy? Well, the enemy, let's go back over here. And we have our animation graph over here. In the variables, I'm going to create a variable. I'm going to call it enemy ref, which is the enemy ref, or, well, basically the reference to the enemy. And we are going to right click, or actually click on this here, or you can click on this over here, the drop down list, or you can click on this there. You see, you can click on here and filter for the enemy or zombie enemy blueprint that we have created, which is, and compile and save this. So compile and save it. If I go back over here, the zombie enemy, this is that blueprint that we have created. So we need a reference to that. Why do we need it? Well, because we are going to get the movement. You see this character movement where we set the speed, the maximum speed, to be 375. But in order to get the movement, we need to go over here in the event graph and right click over here, and we need to search for initialize. You see, event blueprint initialize animation. This is what we need. And what I'm going to do with this, I'm going to get this, try get pawn owner, because the pawn owner of this animation is actually our zombie. And how do we know that? Well, when we select here the mesh, over here for the anim class, we are going to click on the drop down list. And we are going to search for enemy animation and select it, compile and save that. So now you see over here the enemy animation, the one that we have created right here, is the default animation for this mesh, which means these animations that we create here are going to run on this enemy. So over here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to say cast to zombie enemy. And who I'm going to cast? I'm going to cast the pawn owner, because the pawn owner of this blueprint animation is the zombie enemy. If that succeeds, you see over here, if that succeeds, I'm going to set the enemy ref, so the enemy reference. And who is the enemy reference? Well, as zombie enemy, this right here, the object that's being returned when we cast this to the zombie enemy blueprint. And when you compile and save that, we have now a reference to our enemy. Again, why do we need it? Well, because now we can go back here in our animation graph in our idle run, and from here I can get the zombie reference or enemy reference. Then I can get the character movement, you see? So now I have the character movement, which is this bad boy over here, responsible for the movement of our enemy who has the speed and such. So now that we have the character movement, I can get the velocity. So get velocity. Let me just find it over here. So here it is. And the velocity is responsible for the movement, or basically when the velocity is not equal to 0, that means we are moving, because velocity is speed over time. And now from the velocity, we can get the length. You see over here, vector length. You see, returns the length of this vector, and I can plug it in over here. And this vector length is going to have a value from 0 to 375, because over here we set the value maximum walk speed to be 375. So now whenever the enemy starts moving, it will increase its velocity, which means the vector length of this velocity will increase, and we can plug that into the speed to do what? To increase the speed over here. You see, like this, it will increase the value and the zombie will start running. Simple as that. But we're still not finished with the animation, because we need to go back over here, and from the idle run, what I'm going to do is I'm going to get a cache. So simply right click and filter for cache, and we want this new saved cache, and what I'm going to call it is movement cache. This is basically going to cache the movement, so save it, so to say. So now over here I can right click and I can say movement used cache pose. You see this movement cache. And then I can plug it into the default group or slot. So here I can say slot, like this, plug it in over here and plug this in over here, compile and save this. And look at now, look at the enemy, how it is being animated, because a moment ago, the enemy was simply standing in the T pose. Compile and save, you can see how these, you see this is running, this is running, this is running, how everything is going into the output pose, compile and save. And even if I go back over here, if I take the enemy, for example, where is, this is enemy attack, zombie enemy, and if I put it over here, you see, the enemy is going to be animated. So if I eject myself, what am I doing? I'm actually zooming. Let me try to eject. Can I eject myself? Now I can eject myself. Anyways, you will see now, you see how the enemy is being animated. Now we are not going to use the attack animation over here. That's the reason why we only did idle run, because we created over here our montage. Let me just find it over here. Attack. You see, enemy attack is the montage that we created by right clicking. You saw that over here in the animation, and then we did montage, which is basically going to allow us to play that one animation, which is going to be done over here from our enemy blueprint. So if I were to run the game right now and hit play, this is what's gonna happen. We can come close to the enemy and he's ignoring us, or she is ignoring us. That is because we didn't code it. So if I go back over here, what we need, we don't need the begin play, we also don't need the tick event, we need the actor begin overlap, and we also need actor end overlap. So over here, actor end overlap. And we also need a custom event, so I'm going to right click over here and I'm going to type custom event. And this custom event, I'm going to call it chase the player. So what's gonna happen is over here in our actor begin overlap, we are going to detect when the player comes close to us, and then we are going to inform that we are going to chase him and attack him. But before that, over here in our variables, we are going to have 3 variables. So one variable over here is going to be a Boolean, and I'm going to call it can attack. And the next variable is going to be player in range, meaning the player is in our range, we should chase him. And the last variable is the attack rate, and the attack rate is going to be a float. So just compile and save this, because for the attack rate, we are going to set the default value over here to be equal to 2. And this is where I'm setting that default value when you select this attack rate over here inside of the, well, when you select it over here. Can attack is going to be true by default, so compile and save that. So over here in our actor begin overlap, I am going to cast this to third person, so third person character. Why am I casting and who am I casting? Well, we're going to cast the other actor, or basically the actor that we have collided with, meaning the player in this case. And why am I casting it to third person character? Because over here, if I select the player, so if I click on him, you will see he is a third person character. Now, of course, in your game, that can be your own custom build blueprint or C++ class that you created a blueprint out of it, so on and so forth, you get the point. So if this cast succeeds, that means that we have collided with the third person character. Then we are going to say set player in range. So set that the player is in range to be equal to true. And after that, over here, we're going to say chase player or chase the player, which is our function that we have created over here, or custom event basically. Next, what we are going to do is in our end overlap, again, we're going to cast this to a third person character. So I'm going to copy this and I'm going to drag it over here. If this is true, that means end. And what does that mean actually? Well, here in our zombie, you see this. So this is where we are going to detect the actor begin overlap and actor end overlap inside of the sphere. So when the character enters inside the sphere, we can use this. So we can go over here and we can use actor begin overlap. If this cast succeeds, that means that the third person character has entered. When he goes out, so when he goes outside over here, then we will call this over here actor end overlap, which means that, again, if this cast works, that means the player has exit the sphere radius. In that case, I'm going to copy this again and I'm going to set the player in range, and this time it's going to be false. But after that, what we are going to do is we are going to get the character movement over here, but we will do that later on. I will show that and why we need to do it, because we need to stop the movement of the enemy, but we will see that in a moment. Anyways, over here inside of the chase the player, what we are going to do, I'm going to right click and I'm going to say AI move to, and this is the function that we need. And I'm going to plug this in over here. So who is the one that the AI is going to work on? You see, this is that pawn. And we are going to right click over here and we are going to say self, and we're going to get a reference to self, and I'm going to plug that in over here. And the target actor is where or towards who are we going? And we are going to right click over here and we're going to say get player character, like this. And I'm going to plug this in over here and compile and save that. So basically this AI is going to work on self. Self means on the zombie enemy. And it is going to move towards the location of the target actor, which is the player character, which is the third person character. Now this acceptance radius is basically how far away the enemy is going to be from the player before it stops the movement. So over here, instead of 5, I'm going to say 100 units or 100 centimeters, however I want to call that. On success, when we reach the player over here, you see, on success, we are going to go inside of a branch. And that branch is going to determine if we can attack. So over here, I'm going to say can attack. So if we can attack, then over here, I'm going to say set can attack to be equal to false now. So this is not going to be checked because we're going to attack the player. And over here, if it's false, meaning if we still can't attack, we are going to call chase the player so that we can actually chase the player again until we can attack. And over here, we now need to attack. And how are we going to attack? Well, over here, I'm going to right click and I'm going to say play montage. You see over here. And we're going to plug this in. The montage to play is the enemy attack, which is the attack animation of the enemy. But in skeletal mesh component, where for that we're going to get our mesh, and I'm going to plug that in over here. So the skeletal mesh is actually the enemy mesh, you see? The enemy mesh is the one that we are going to play this montage on. Why? Well, because the enemy attack animation is this one over here, you see? And we need to play it on the mesh of the enemy, which is this skeleton that it is using. Because if you go over here, and if you select the mesh, you will see, notice here, the skeletal mesh is the zombie girl, so this animation will be played on that. Next, after that, so over here, when we call to play the montage, which is the attack animation, over here we're going to call delay, like this. And we are going to delay for the attack rate, which is currently 2, which means we will not be able to attack a gazillion times in a second. Instead, we will attack once and wait 2 seconds, and then we are going to say can attack is going to be equal to true by checking the checkbox over here. And after this has completed, you see, after this montage play, after the animation has played out and this is completed, we are going to go in a branch and we are going to check if the player is in range. If the player is in range, we are going to call chase the player one more time. And over here, compile and save that. So if I go back now, and we'll come back to this, don't worry about that. If I go over here now, pay attention what's gonna happen. Let me try to actually, how can I think because one program that I'm running that allows me to do this, that allows me to draw, I cannot eject myself. Anyways, if I select the enemy, you will see, let me just find the enemy. So because of that, it's not showing where the enemy's sphere is. Anyways, it's not important, but the sphere is somewhere around here. When I come close, you will now see that the enemy is not going to chase me. I tricked you. And why is that? Well, we have one more thing that we need to do. In order for the AI to work, so in order for this AI move to work, what we need to do is we need to go over here, and here in the modes and search classes, you see, we need to type for nav, and we want this one, Nav Mesh Bounds Volume, and we're going to put that in over here. What is this Nav Mesh Bounds Volume? Well, basically, this is going to tell the AI where it can navigate. So it is going to tell the AI in which or where, or however I want to say it, it's going to tell it where it can navigate. And in order to do that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to place it for the X at -120, -130 for the Y, and the Z axis for 80. But I am also going to scale it up. So 20 for the X, 20 for the Y, and the Z is going to be 5. So you can see now this yellow thing is the bounds for the navigation of the enemy. Let me just save this, because now if I go here, you see it is covering the whole level, and this is what you will do in your game as well. You will cover the whole level with this nav bounce, because now if I hit play and come close to the enemy, you see now the enemy is chasing me. But what I want to do when I exit, you see, this is why, pay attention, the enemy is still chasing me. Look at that. And even though I have far exited the sphere, which is the bound where I need to enter in order for the enemy to detect me, but the enemy is not stopping. And the reason for that is over here, as I said, you see, when the actor end overlap finishes, and you can test that by simply using this over here, print string like this, and you can type something like player escaped, so escaped. I don't care that I misspell it, but we will see it now. So if I enter now, and if I exit, you will see player, you see, pay attention, player escaped. You see, you saw that at the top. And if I enter right now and try to escape one more time, let's see that player escape, you see, again. So this actually works, but we are not stopping the character movement. So over here, from the character movement, I'm going to call stop movement immediately. And then plug this in over here and compile and save that. So now when we exit outside of the bounce, the enemy is going to stop chasing us. You see? Do you see that? And of course you do. You have eyes, I mean. You see? And now if the enemy comes close, pay attention now. It comes close and it will attack. Bam, one attack. So now it will wait 2 seconds and attack again. Bam. And one more time. And if I try to escape, it is going to chase me because now it is detecting if I am in the range or if I am not in the range by using this over here. So when the montage finishes playing uncompleted over here, we're going to go in the branch, check if the player is in range, and if the player is still in range, then chase the player. Because if we don't do that, if we don't call that, if I break the link over here, and if I compile and save that, and if I go back and if I hit the play, notice now when the enemy attacks me once, you see, it will attack, or it will not even attack, you see? And over here, I can simply run away, you see? So this is the reason why we need to call this over here. So when it completes, then we need to do this again. So compile and save that so that when we go inside of this branch, and if the player is in range, and we know that when he is still inside of the bounds of the sphere, then in that case, we are going to call chase the player, which you saw. You saw what is the consequence if we don't do that. Now, what is happening over here? Again, we're using the built-in functionality AI move to. We explained that. So this pawn, which is self, which refers to the zombie enemy, is going to go towards the target called player, which is the player character. And how do I know that? Well, you can hover over here, you see, returns the player character. Basically, null if the player pawn does not exist or it's not a character. Over here you can see that. So we can click here in the project settings, maps and modes, and selected game mode. You see default pawn class. This is the third person character. So this is the one that we are getting when we say player character. After that, you saw everything what's happening over here. So we're going to go in the branch when that succeeds, when we get close, and you can play with the radius to see that on your own. I'm not going to do that, so you can see that on your own how that works. And yeah, other than that, so over here when that succeeds, go in the branch. If it's true, then we can attack. If it's false, chase the player. And you can unplug this, break the link, and see the consequences. If can attack is not true, and we come close to the player, then you will not chase the player again. But if it's true, can attack is false, play the attack animation and then set the delay to wait for 2 seconds and set the can attack again. And yeah, there you go. Compile and save that. Anyways, this was the enemy AI tutorial for Unreal Engine. If you want to learn more how to create enemy AI and how to add cool enemy AI effects where the enemy can attack the player and deal damage and all of the good stuff, you have that in my academy. Link is in the description below. Until then, Fahir here from Mazu.com. I will see you guys in the next video.